came out of the MRI and he realized that he had cancer in every part of his body, especially the liver, and we all know how serious that is, and bone, every place except for one, his lungs. And he says to my mom, I'm so glad I didn't quit smoking. And he smoked like a chimney until he couldn't hold a cigarette. And even after that, this was one of the funniest things, we'd go in there and he'd be in bed and he'd be pretending. And he'd say, Ann, there's nothing there. Give me a match. I'd say, okay. So I'm pantomiming, right? And he's going, and he is smoking. He is pretending and enjoying a smoke, even though there was nothing in his hand, up until he was falling asleep.
He sure made it funny. We were embarrassed because we were laughing all the time.
Really?
A little bit.
You were embarrassed because you're laughing while he had cancer?
We were embarrassed because we knew he was going to die and he was making us laugh all the time.
Now you know the humor and sense of humor and playful style that Bill Mahoney gave to his family. And why Bill Mahoney gave that to his family is that's how he showed how much he loved them and cared about them, by giving them the gift of laughter and humor. And that's exactly what this class is about.
My mom was talking about how we were almost embarrassed because we would be laughing. Dad would say something, we'd go out in the living room, and we'd all just be doubled over and crying. We were laughing so hard, and the doorbell would ring, and there would be some real sad couple, friend of ours, with food, and they're, you know, real sad coming in, and we're in the living room. We can't even talk to go to the door, and we would say, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, do you want to go? And it was embarrassing to us that we weren't playing the role of the, you know, oh, how many days are left, because we didn't feel that way, because he didn't let us feel that way. We were taking turns staying with my dad about 2 weeks before he passed away, and it's hard to believe. You'd think we were all sad. There are 5 siblings, but we all looked forward to the night we got to spend with Dad, because he talked with us all night and he'd ask us stories, told us jokes. If we started crying, he says, "They're crying, stop crying, come sit by me." So, but the hard part was staying up all night, because we never knew what he was going to do. He wasn't supposed to get out of bed, and so it's 5 minutes to 5, and I cannot stay awake. I mean, I'm just wiped. So I fall asleep, and I wake up 3 minutes later, and he's gone out of the bed. And he's not supposed to be walking. He's got bone cancer everywhere. And I go out in the hall, and he's on all fours in the hall, halfway between the bedroom and the bathroom. And he said, I said, "Dad, is there anything I can do for you?" And he goes, "Yeah, you know what I need? I need 4 casters." So I could just, then you could just roll me down the hall to the bathroom. And we started laughing together.
It was his demeanor anyway, David. I mean, that was the way he was. He wasn't a somber type person anyway. But I think he did it just because he didn't want us to be sitting around crying. He just did it for us and because it was him.
The Monday before he passed away, his mind was so sharp, even to the end, and his wit, his Irish wit, and his generosity, because he wasn't thinking about himself, but he wanted us to feel good. So he goes, "Let's all go out to dinner." And Mom says, "Well, that might be kind of hard, you know, he can't even move." So she says, "You know, do you want to get dressed up?" And he said, "I want to pick out a shirt for me." So she dresses him in a nice shirt and stuff. And she said, "But honey, it's going to be kind of hard to go somewhere." And she goes, "What can we do?" And he said, "Let's just go mess up our own kitchen." So we get him in the kitchen, and we're all there except for one, my sister Colleen, who lives in Dallas, and she'd just gone back. And he calls her. He says, "I need to call Colleen." He gets her on the phone, and he said, "Colleen, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is I'm about to take a great trip, and it's going to be wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to it. But the bad news is I'm the only one who has a ticket." And then she talked to him a little while, and he hung up, and immediately she got on the plane and came, and 4 days later he was gone. But instead of saying, "I'm dying, please come, guilt," he, you know, it's all an analogy, and he meant it. I'm happy, and don't be unhappy, because I'm excited about my trip. One ticket. We only have one ticket. And we're all in the kitchen trying to pretend like we're cooking and stuff, and we're eavesdropping on that. And that was funny too, because none of us can cook, and he knew we couldn't cook. I mean, the layers of the humor are, in retrospect, even funnier. The night he died, we were all there. I just remember standing there, and he took his last breath. And then the hospice lady came in. She goes, "You don't want to be here when they take him out." So we went into what we called the music room, and my sisters got out all this music because Dad loved singing, and we harmonized, and we got out all his favorite songs, and we just burst into song, loud song, Hi Lily, Hi Low, Take the A Train, the big band songs, just Irish songs, and Bill, my brother, and his wife Suzanne brought in Baileys. We all had a little shot of Baileys, and we were laughing, we were singing, we were drinking our Baileys. And the paramedic was running late. It was midnight, and he had to call home, and his wife accused him of being in a bar instead of at work because of the background noise. And he came into us and said, "You won't believe, somebody's going to have to say, I am working at the Mahoney's. I'm at work. I am not in a bar."
Even the funeral wasn't sad. It just wasn't sad.
Why?
Because we'd been in this, he put us up in this, I don't know what you call it, but we were just hysterical most of the time. It was really funny.
Please, don't think for a second the Mahoneys didn't experience sadness and grief. Of course they did. They didn't just laugh it off like nothing happened. But when they look back and think, and every time I talk to Annie about it, every time we tell these stories about her dad, she lights up. She goes, "I miss my dad. Of course I miss my dad. But man, he helped us get through that whole thing." That's a gift of laughter. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let Annie tell you more about that to close out in her words. But before, I want to tell you about the next class that's coming up, because this is a big one and an important one. Not that all of them aren't. But remember we talked about at the first class, we're going to get to the point of how it's possible to find joy and get through the loss of a child. That's what the next class is after this. But first, let's let Annie explain one more time the gift Bill Mahoney gave to his family.
I just have to say that, death is not funny. It's a loss. We miss him every day, especially my mom. They were life partners. They had so much fun, and he knew how to make fun out of anything. It's not that his death is funny, but he left us this great gift. I mean, when we think of his illness, we laugh and we have stories that we tell. Do you remember the night when do you remember this? So at the funeral, people would come up and say, "You're all so happy. You're all whooped up." And my brother said, "My dad did that. He got us all whooped up, and then he went to heaven, and the bummer is we had to stay here." But the joy of it is, we don't remember cancer. We don't remember suffering. We don't remember the illness because he didn't allow it. He didn't allow anybody to think about anything except what makes us laugh. And it was a great gift.